Hello, and welcome to the Cass Health Podcast, the show where we hope to connect our community with healthcare information that's relatable, understandable, and useful to your life, and where you get to know better the neighbors providing your care here. I'm your host, Ann McCurdy, and in today's episode, we're talking about breastfeeding with Brooke Dreager and Britni Olson. Before we get started, two quick disclaimers. First, the comments in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Cass Health. Second, the information in this podcast is not intended to be construed as personal medical advice. Always consult your primary care provider with your questions and concerns regarding your health. Britni, Brooke, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
So to get started, I'll have you both introduce yourself. So Brooke first.
Hi, I'm Brooke Dreager. I'm a OB med-surg nurse here at Cass Health, and I've been here for about 8 years.
I'm Britni Olson. I'm also an OB med-surg nurse here at Cass Health, and I've been here almost 10 years.
And you are joining us today to talk about breastfeeding, and you are both certified lactation counselors.
That is correct.
Yes.
I received my certified lactation counselor certificate in October of 2020.
And I received mine, it would have been April of 2019.
And on top of that, lots of experience helping new moms navigate both new babies and breastfeeding.
Yes.
So we have lots of questions about breastfeeding that we'll get to here shortly. But first, we'd like to start out with a little fun get to know you. So we'll go Brooke and then Britni on these, okay? So Brooke, where are you from?
I am from here in Atlantic. I graduated in 2000. Sorry, that seems like such a long time ago. From Atlantic High School. So I've been here for most of my life.
And I currently live in Audubon. Grew up in the Exira area, but have been in Audubon since then. So,
All right, favorite TV series?
Oh boy. I would say it's probably changed over the years. I'm kind of a sucker for like those teenage TV series. So I have always loved like One Tree Hill, things like that.
Dawson's Creek.
Yes, 100%. One funny fact is I have watched General Hospital, the soap opera, since I was about 13 years old. So, and to this day, I watch it every day, and I have gotten my husband totally in love with it as well. So he gets mad at me now if I watch it without him.
Did that like spur your interest in healthcare?
No, not at all, because there's absolutely no medical backing to it, and it's one of those shows that I watch, and I'm like, they're so not doing that right, because they'll, like, shock asystole, which if you have any medical background at all, you cannot shock asystole, so it's frustrating. So he'll look at me as I'm yelling at the screen, like, you can't do that. But nope, it's a guilty pleasure.
And how about you, Britni?
I guess looking back, I would say Grey's Anatomy has been like my one true one. I'm also kind of a sucker for reality, like The Bachelor. But I would say those are my two top ones.
All very fun to watch. If you're cooking dinner to impress, what are you making?
I am not a great cook. I don't think. I have some signature meals that I kind of have as my go-to. Beef and noodles is probably a big one. Like I put a roast in the crock pot and then I'll make noodles out of the juice and things like that. One that I've really come to love recently that's super easy is that lazy crock pot lasagna that you make with like cheese ravioli, and then you put the meat sauce on top of it. Super easy, really, really good. Make some garlic bread with it. So
everybody likes it.
Yeah, my kids eat it.
Nice.
It's pretty easy, and you don't have to do a whole lot with it. And if you put a crock pot liner in, it makes cleanup even easier. So anything that's going to be easy, and, carbs are always good. So that's probably going to be a go-to.
Yeah, who doesn't like pasta?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Britni, what would you be making?
I'm also not a great cook, and I don't like to experiment for other people, so we probably have to order pizza. I
Good
go
safe
to is like
option.
Grace on Main, ordering out their pizzas, and we're not that far away, so it's usually what we get.
That is delicious. That's
To
a good
impress.
choice.
Yeah.
Favorite outdoor activity? Not being outdoors.
Well, okay, so I will say I'm not very outdoorsy. I do have 2 boys, though, so I've had to get a little bit better with the whole outdoor dirt thing over the last couple of years. We have, 2 years ago, we bought a camper. So I would say my favorite outdoor thing is camping, but I we camp in style. So as long as I have my comfy chair and a book, I consider that being somewhat outdoorsy. So that would be my probably favorite outdoor activity, as long as I have like bug repellent and it's not too hot or too cold and I'm not super uncomfortable. That's probably going to be what I'm going to say. But yeah, not super outdoorsy.
That's okay. We'll totally count it. Outdoor activity, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Brittany?
I would say our family is more into like fishing. We have a fishing boat, and so we just go to like a lot of local ponds, but the kids are really getting into it with their own fishing poles and trying to play with the worms and all that good stuff. So
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Favorite holidays?
All of them. I really like to decorate, so I will take any holiday to, do that. I would say the big ones are probably more favorite. Anytime I get the chance to spend time with family and, celebrate in any way, I'm going to take it. I like Christmas, of course. I mean, the lights and the meaning and the reason, everything. But, any holiday from 4th of July to anything that gives me a reason to do stuff in my house or, go to Hobby Lobby and buy more decorations and things like that. It's a good excuse to decorate and spend time with family and things like that.
I guess I would have to go with the 4th of July. I grew up in the Exeter area, and so we've always had kind of a bigger celebration, and all of my family's there in town, and just participating in all the parades and activities going on, and it's summer, so it's fun just to be out, and the kids enjoy it too, so.
I totally knew she was going to say that one.
That's because I always ask Brooke to work
Yep.
like a holiday. It's like when we have our class reunions and everybody's back, and it's just like,
I love the 4th of July is my favorite too, because it's not as stressful and there's like not as much to do. And I'm like, what do? We like hang out by the pool. We grill some food. We hang out. Like it's so low key, but it's that together time with family. But it's warm.
Yes.
What will we never catch you doing? Oh, I know that one's a stumper. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. What will you
Something
never catch me doing?
you would never do.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. I'd like to say that I would try everything. I mean, it would probably have to, this is kind of boring, but it'd probably be something in the food aspect. I'm a very, very picky eater. So there's probably a ton of foods that I would not, like, you would never catch me eating raw fish or like sushi or, there's a lot of foods that I'm not going to touch. So, there's a lot of like that kind of thing, but I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right.
I'm gonna go with you would never see me holding a snake. I can't do this.
Can't do the
do
snake.
the snake thing.
Yeah.
I've done that plenty of times, so I can't even.
I can handle the snakes, but not the mice. No, thank you.
I've done both.
Oh.
So.
Yeah.
I like fast-moving creatures.
Any hobbies?
I read a lot, and I can read really fast, so I go through books really fast. So that's kind of like used to have those like information pieces about staff members, and my info about me was that I can read like a 400 to 500 page book in like less than 2 hours if I'm not interrupted. It's nice if I need to read things fast, but it kind of stinks if I'm doing it as a hobby, because then I go through a book and I have to go and find another book really quickly. But no, that would probably be my biggest hobby, is if I have time. I really enjoy to read.
I don't have like a certain hobby. I just always tell people that my kids are my hobby, because it just seems like whatever we're doing involves the kiddos. And so, yeah, I'm not good about putting doing anything for myself, but.
Well, there's that season of life, especially when you have younger kids, like that that's all you do is.
That's all I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't have time to do
being a mom. My hobby is being a mom.
Yeah.
You're driving alone in the car. What are you jamming out to?
I like mainly country music, but I can't say that there's not times that I pull out like my CDs from, when I was in high school way back in the 90s, which I know seems like a really long time ago for some people. And I have like my Pink CDs and my NSYNC and my Backstreet Boys and that kind of stuff. And I will totally jam out to those really, really loud. And then my kids will get in the car and I'll have forgotten to turn the volume down. And they're like, what the heck is this? Or Spice Girls, there's always a couple of Spice Girls songs that'll come on.
She just took what I was going to say. I was like, I usually can tune into like a 90s schoolgirl and like do a Spice Girl.
Well, I'm sorry. You can't trust anybody who's not going to like sing at the top of their lungs to the Spice Girl Want to Be My Friend song. I mean, there's just no.
Something on your bucket list. What's on your bucket list, Brooke?
Honestly, we probably did one of them this year. So I had never, my husband, my family, and I, we had never taken a big trip before. We had never flown, anything like that. And we went to Jamaica in November. So we have made it a goal to try and make time to take bigger trips. And now we have a passport. And now that I'm not deathly afraid to fly again, we are going to try and do that more often because it was probably one of the best experiences of our lives. We took our boys, and my husband and I went to an all-inclusive family resort, and it was the most fun thing that we've ever done. So now that we have all of those things put together, we're going to try and do that more often. So that was definitely one thing that we wanted to do. So I'm very thankful that we were able to do that.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it was warm. I was finally warm. Anybody who knows me or anybody who knows anything about me knows that I'm always cold. So I was not cold in Jamaica.
How about you, Brittany? What's on the bucket list?
I guess one thing I've always wanted to do is to skydive. I just feel like that would be such a rush. I don't know. I'm not a huge person of heights, but I think once I got it done, I would be so glad I did it. So, yeah, skydiving would probably be in my bucket list for life.
I will take pictures of you from the ground. I was perfectly okay being on the plane. I don't think I would want to jump off of the plane.
Well, to a certain extent.
Yeah. The older
someone's with me. I think.
Yes.
The older I get, the more risk averse I seem to be. I'm like, nah. I don't know. But I usually ask a quick question about why nursing. Like, why did you choose the career that you have?
When I was in high school, my sister was a nurse, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was contemplating medical field, and she was like, come to Grandview and do nursing with me and all that. So I jumped on board with her, and I went to Grandview for 4 years and got my bachelor's. So that's why I'm in nursing. Perfect. And I don't regret it. So
perfect. Yeah. How about you, Brooke?
Right out of high school, I went to college to do physical therapy assistant. Actually, I always knew I wanted to do something healthcare. And then where I went to college, and because I had moved away to a bigger city and just ended up didn't like it, so I moved back and started doing home healthcare. And did that, and then went and got my CNA and worked as a CNA for 13 years before I went back to school. So I always knew I wanted to do something healthcare related. And a coworker of mine had went back into nursing. And after I had my first child, I absolutely loved my labor and delivery experience. And she kind of talked me into going back to school to get my RN. And when I went back to school, I went in thinking I either wanted to do OB or hospice, which I know, granted, to opposite ends of the spectrum. I had loved hospice cares in the nursing home, and I had loved my OB experience. So I was like, I'll just figure out what I want to do. Obviously, OB won my heart in nursing school and my preceptorship and everything. But I knew all throughout everything that I was doing, I wanted to do something in healthcare. I just didn't know that my end goal would be nursing, my RN. I have no interest in going for my bachelor's whatsoever. So hopefully we don't ever have to do that, but I'm very, very happy with where I ended up with working in OB here. So couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Brooke, Brittany, as certified lactation counselors, we wanted to talk with you about breastfeeding, and I'm happy that Kat Neiman could jump in here with us. Hi, Kat.
Hi.
Kat is actively breastfeeding her third child right now, Cora.
Yes.
She's in the midst of breastfeeding.
And these two women helped me in the hospital.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. These two women did not help me in the hospital. I had my babies right before Brittany came on, but I breastfed 4 kids, and we all have different experiences with feeding babies. So at the very beginning, how do I get started as a new mom to be successful with breastfeeding? What are those things that you would share to say, hey, new mom, here's how we're going to get you off on the right foot?
I'll chime in first. I would tell a mom who wanted to breastfeed from the very beginning she delivered her child that skin to skin is very important. So we encourage mothers to put the baby to their chest, at least for the first hour, hopefully, if possible, between mom and baby's condition. It's just a lot of good bonding, temperature, and the baby can actually walk itself to the breast, is what they call it. So it can smell what it's looking for and kind of crawl to the breast. So that would be the first thing I would encourage. The second thing I would be is just to be open to suggestions and getting help. It's not easy. It's not an easy road, but it's totally worth it if you want to do it and if you have the desire to do it. So, I mean, those would be my top two. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but like Britni said, skin to skin is super important. It's not only good for baby because, like Britni said, it's good for baby's temperature regulation. It helps baby figure out kind of how to breathe on the outside world. It helps baby hear mom's heart rate on the outside, so it helps baby calm down. It's also good for mom. So after baby's born, mom's hormones do all sorts of things to kind of get their body ready to produce milk and do all the things that it needs to do to get ready to breastfeed. So putting baby skin to skin kind of helps get that started, even if baby doesn't latch right away, because sometimes babies can be super sleepy. If babies have any trouble coming out, or they have a ton of amniotic fluid still in their belly, so they're not super hungry, so they don't latch, right away. Even having baby on the chest will kind of stimulate some of those hormones, which is really good for mom. It also helps mom with just relaxation. Sometimes if moms aren't feeling the best, it just kind of puts you in like a happy place. Like your baby's there. You get to see that, it's everything you worked for is like right there. So it's just really good bonding time. And not necessarily for the breastfeeding aspect, but don't want to leave dads out. Dads can do skin to skin too. Doesn't necessarily help with breastfeeding, but we don't want to leave dads out. But yeah, skin to skin, excellent for breastfeeding initially for that first 24 hours. If baby can spend as much time skin to skin as possible, that's great, especially if baby's not eating the best because baby's either sleepy or baby has a stomach full of leftover amniotic fluid because it needs to poop or it needs to vomit or something. The more skin to skin time we can do, the better.
So that kind of leads into those first 24 hours. You read about that being like a really critical time period, but that first 24 hours can be really different between different moms and different babies. So let's talk about that first 24 hours. What would that look like, or what could that look like?
I guess I always tell a mom, sometimes the baby comes out and it's wanting to eat, it's brooding, and it wants latched on, and it eats really good, and everyone's so excited because this baby ate and mom's excited, and then the baby doesn't want to latch again for quite some time, and that can be frustrating because mom thinks baby needs to eat. So I always tell people it's really hit or miss. First 24 hours, baby can eat really well and then have sleepy periods. But again, skin to skin in between that time. We are monitoring baby. We're monitoring vitals, poops and pees, blood sugars if we need to. As long as your nurse is saying, yes, your baby is stable and it's okay not to eat, we just keep encouraging to try, to ask for help to try. But it can be frustrating the first 24 because a baby might not eat for 12 hours, and that can kind of throw a lot of people off in the room that, you're not feeding your baby. But usually after the first 24 hours, the baby will wake up. It will know it's hungry. It will show the right signs, and just watching for those signs, I would say, being observant of your baby and the signs it's showing on when to feed it. So,
and I think a lot of people forget that when a baby's born, its stomach is seriously the size of a marble. So it holds about 5 milliliters at a time of a feeding. And if you think about it, anybody who's had a newborn baby, we usually educate to feed about every 2 to 3 hours. And the reason that they eat so often is because if they're only taking in a little bit at a time, they eat more often because it passes through more quickly. So they're taking littler amounts because their stomach can only hold a little bit at a time. So they're going to eat more often because it's going to take a little bit and then it passes through, and it takes a little bit and it passes through. Well, if that baby hasn't passed anything and their stomach's still full, just because they haven't stooled or, they have a whole bunch of stuff that they swallowed during delivery or whatnot, they may not be hungry, until they have their first big poop. So, your nurse might just be like, oh, it's fine that they haven't ate for 15 hours. And you have a grandma that comes in and is like, what? They haven't eaten for 15 hours. They need formula, or they need, this, and this. And the nurse is going to be like, no, they really don't. It's okay.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're not, worried or concerned or anything like that. It's just that babies, they do things kind of on their own time. And you think about everything that a baby has to go through, when they're born and everything. But babies usually eat when they're hungry.
Right.
And I've told many moms that, like, if you just wait just a little bit longer, I really think that they're going to eat here in a little bit. And most of the time they wake up and then they end up eating all night. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But they do. When their stomach empties out and they're finally like, oh, yeah, I want to eat now, it's because their stomach emptied out and they're ready to
They've got
eat.
room.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that first 24, trust your nursing team, trust your instincts as a mom too. Pay attention to your baby's signs, if they're zonked and zonked and content and,
Yes.
right?
And it was different for all three of my kids. The first 24 hours were all different. So I'm not a nurse, but as a mom, all three of my kids were different. So knowing that and being patient, and they're all individual people, right? So,
Well, and that's just as important. Just because you're not a nurse doesn't mean that you don't have more experience. I mean, I try and listen to my moms just as much as I'll listen to another nurse. Having a mom who's telling me, I really don't think they're hungry right now, is just as important, because moms who have breastfed before, I get tons of information from moms who have breastfed before, because they might have tips that I've never heard before. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. So.
yeah, that's true.
So let's talk next about latch. That's probably one of the biggest concerns, especially for new moms. Is my baby latched on right? It's one of the reasons that women stop breastfeeding too, is that they have latching concerns. So let's talk about that. Can you walk us through what is a good latch and how do I get a good latch?
I would say the latch is probably one of the biggest things that we work on with new breastfeeding moms. It's probably one of the most important things that we work on, because if the latch isn't the way that it needs to be, one, it's going to be uncomfortable, and nobody with an uncomfortable latch is going to want to continue breastfeeding, because mom's going to get sore and it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. Not only that, the milk transfer with an improper latch is not going to be as good. So that can affect what baby's getting. It can affect what you're producing. It just can cause lots of problems. And there's a lot of things that can go into a latch not being right. It can be that your baby's not opening their mouth wide enough. So we want to make sure that baby's got a wide open mouth. So those are kind of the first things we're going to look for. We're going to make sure that baby's positioned right. There's certain ways that it helps a little bit if baby's laying in a certain direction. And there's a couple of different directions that we can help you kind of lay baby. So we'll teach you all of those, because there's some that are more comfortable for moms. They feel better holding baby a certain way. There's certain positions that we're looking for lips to be in. We want, really, really big, for lack of a better word, duck lips. We want lips to be like super phalanged out. We want to make sure that baby's sucking the right way. So there's just key things that as nurses, not just CLCs, so all of our nurses on our unit are taught to look for certain things to help the mom have the best breastfeeding experience that they can have. And if that latch isn't going right, then there's certain things that we're looking for. Is there a tongue tie? So maybe baby's tongue isn't able to extend all the way because the little piece of skin that holds it back needs to be clipped. So that's something that most of our doctors up on the floor can do while you're here. Super easy procedure, takes care of a lot of problems. Some babies can have a lip tie. That's a little bit more of an issue that they have to go see a special doctor for, but it's something that we can get taken care of and get referred to. They can, solve a whole bunch of issues. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I've had people come back a couple of weeks after delivery, and it was as simple as changing from like a cross cradle where baby's laying across your stomach to a football hold where it was tucked under, and it solved all of her issues just because of the direction that baby was pulling. This was her second baby that she was breastfeeding, and she didn't even think about that. But when you're tired and things are hurting, you don't always think about, the easy, unquote, fixes that might make things a little bit better. But latch is something that if it's not going well, it's going to make you not want to continue doing it. And there's a lot of things that we can look at and make better if you'll let us help you with it.
So with latch and with breastfeeding, there are some tools and maybe some things that, might make your breastfeeding journey a little bit easier. What are some of those things that you find that might help a new breastfeeding mom?
One of the bigger things I think we use, depending on a woman's nipple shape, some have flatter nipples, some are inverted. Sometimes the baby just does not want to latch onto that or get a big enough mouth. So we can use tools like the nipple shield, which is just a nice training tool to help baby get a little bit more of a mouthful. We also have some shells, nipple shells, that might help bring the nipples out a little bit more. We do have like a supplementer that would help baby supplement if needed. What else am I forgetting?
I feel like that's about it. A lot of times we help moms sometimes express, like hand express breast milk while baby's at the breast, because sometimes babies are kind of greedy and they want that instant gratification. So if we're able to express some colostrum, that helps them latch on a little bit quicker. But I feel like you hit all the other key points.
Supply. I'm sure this is a question that you get a lot too, about supply concerns. So is my baby getting enough? Am I making enough? You know, if I'm pumping, how do I keep up with the demand? So what are some of those top questions you get about supply, and what is that advice that you give to moms?
Like the first question people ask about supply, especially in the hospital, that we hear a lot about is, I don't see anything. I'm not leaking. I don't feel like my breasts are full. How do I know my baby's getting enough? You know, like they're still crying and they act hungry all the time. And I think one of the most important things for them to realize is that those first couple of days is just colostrum. And that is that like golden milk that everyone talks about. And babies may only get a drop of that, but that's all that they need. It carries all the nutrients and sugars and whatever baby needs. So it's something you might not see, but your baby, as long as they're latching, is getting something. And then it can take 3 to 5 days for that milk to come in. And so it's sometimes even after they go home before we see them again, if their milk will come in after that. So I just tell people, as long as they're nursing, you know, every 2 to 3 hours, trying to wake their baby, feeding them when they're rooting or when they're showing signs of hunger, to put them to breast. I guess a lot of times we just have to tell moms to trust their instincts. Sometimes babies have cluster feeds where they want to eat every hour, and that's okay. You know, again, watch their signs. If then they take a 4-hour break, that's fine, you know. And I guess one of the bigger things we watch for is their weight in the hospital. Even when they come back, we have all moms and babies come back 2 days after they leave the hospital for weight checks, check how feedings are going, check how moms are doing, that type of thing. But, you know, we can usually tell, are they still losing weight? Are they gaining weight? How is nursing going now that you've been home for a couple days? Has your milk come in? That type of thing. And just give encouragement. I feel like a lot of moms just need that, like, yes, you are doing a good thing. Yes, you know, hang tight even though you don't feel like it's going well. You know, your baby looks terrific. Just that extra sense of encouragement for moms to keep going and trust that they're doing the right thing. So
I always try and tell moms to look at their pees and poops. So there's this, and I don't know how old it is. So like on the first day of life, they're supposed to have like 1 pee and 1 poop. And then the second day of life, they're supposed to have like 2 pees and 2 poops. And then third day, 3 pees, 3 poops. And then once your milk comes in, that's supposed to go up. And then we also look at when their poop starts transitioning. So when babies are first born, they have like this really thick, black, tarry meconium stool. And then it starts changing colors as, you know, baby starts getting a little bit older and milk starts coming in and things like that. So if I have a baby come in and even say its weight hasn't went up a ton, but its stool has transitioned and they look okay, I might not be as concerned about the weight as long as the poop is, you know, the nice yellow seedy, you know, and they're not jaundiced and things like that. That's a great sign, because even if their weight's not, you know, going up a ton, but everything else is looking good, that's a great sign that they're feeding what they need to. There used to be this old rule that baby had to be back at birth weight by 1 week, and they've done a lot of studies since then that that's not necessarily, you know, it has to be that way. Now they're saying if 2 weeks is a little bit more of a general rule, if baby's not back up to birth weight by 2 weeks, then maybe we need to start looking at like what's going on. But most babies are back up to birth weight by 2 weeks or before, so it's not usually an issue. Also, I would say if moms are pumping right away, they get really concerned because they're not seeing anything in the pump, and they're not going to. Colostrum doesn't really come out in a pump unless there are some moms who are amazing. Like their supply just is instantly right there and they pump a ton of colostrum and it's a great thing for them. But some don't, and I think that's disheartening for some people because they don't see anything in a pump. But a baby gets way more out than a pump does. So the first couple of days you don't have to pump. So if you don't want to, unless for some reason, say baby's really sleepy and you're wanting to stimulate things just to kind of get your hormones going, then you can pump a little bit. But don't get disheartened if you don't see anything more than maybe just some condensation in your phalanges or something like that, because we don't expect to see, like, if there's a drop, we're all like, yeah, that's great. And I've had people look at me like I'm crazy because I saw a drop of colostrum. I'm like, but no, you don't understand. Like, that's really good that you even got a drop out, because a lot of times you're not going to see anything in a pump because it's not anything like what a baby can get out of you. So it's don't expect to see a whole lot the first couple of days until your milk comes in. And then with supply also, it's like supply and demand. Like, the more baby goes to breast, the more you're going to up your supply. And you always hear, you know, the more you drink and the oatmeal and things like that. Yes, you want to make sure you're eating and drinking well, but like drinking 6 body armors a day doesn't necessarily mean that your supply is going to go up. You're probably going to pee a lot and be really well hydrated, but it's not necessarily going to make your milk supply be. You want to be well hydrated. You don't want to dehydrate. You have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your baby, but you don't necessarily have to go overboard.
So probably the biggest thing to impact supply is feeding baby.
Yes.
Okay.
Feeding on demand versus on a schedule. I see
Huge
that a lot.
Key point.
Right? Because you guys always preach about on demand.
Yep.
Watch the hunger signs, And then Anne fed her babies on a schedule.
Honestly, babies act like they're hungry for everything. So they act like they're hungry when they're hungry. They act like they're hungry when they have a gas bubble. They act like they're hungry when they're uncomfortable. So it's hard because that's their communication. So if you know that that baby has just eaten really, really well, it's okay to try other things. So if you are okay with using a pacifier, I know that there's a whole lot of things out there about you're not supposed to use a pacifier when you're initiating breastfeeding, and I'm sure that there's people who feel differently about pacifiers and things like that. Some babies like to suck, and as long as you're okay with using a pacifier, you can make the choice to use a pacifier for your baby. I fully support the use of pacifiers. I mean, there's signs and studies that show that they decrease the chance of SIDS, things like that, and some babies just like to suck to soothe. So if you know that baby's well fed and you use a pacifier a little bit, if that pacifier soothes them, that's great. If it doesn't, then you go back to breast. So if the pacifier is not what they want, they're going to tell you, and you always go back to breast. But it's an option. So if the 2 hours works for you, that's great. If feeding on demand works for somebody else, that's great. You have to do what works for you. Otherwise, breastfeeding is not going to work, because if you don't find a system that works best for you and your family, it's not something you're going to continue. Right.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I tell moms a lot of time, you know, they've been on for 45 minutes. I said, that's too long. Your baby's now using you as a pacifier. Like, if they're not actively sucking while they're on there, then they're just using you for comfort. Some moms like that. I mean, they want to do all the skin to skin and the comfort. You're going to get sore. You're going to get tired. You don't have any time for yourself. So, you know, if they're not actively sucking or aggressively sucking, and you can hear them swallowing, you know, take them off and give yourself a break and let everything recharge. So.
Is breastfeeding for everyone? And OB nurses, what do you think?
I'm going to say no. Breastfeeding is not for everyone. I think breastfeeding is amazing. It's a miracle that our bodies can do this, but is not the best option for everybody. There are so many variations that people can do with feeding. So if exclusive breastfeeding works for you and your family, that's great. If breast pumping and bottle feeding with breastfeeding works for you, that's great. If supplementing with formula and breastfeeding works for you, that's great. If strictly feeding formula is what works for you, that's great. We will support any choice that you make, because you have to make the decision that is going to be the best for your mental health, your body, and your baby. So if something is not working for you, do not put yourself in the situation to continue with that just because you think you have to.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't discourage mothers who don't choose to breastfeed. I would ask, though, like, what their reasoning is, what they, you know, oh, I know it's going to hurt. Some people's do, some don't, you know, like keeping an open mind coming in. Some people will say, oh, I want to give it a try. And that's great too. But you really got to be all in or not. You know, like we said, it works on supply and demand. So if in the middle of the night you don't want to wake up, you want your sleep and you don't want to wake up to feed your baby, that's not going to work. You know, you still have to, it's an all in or all out, I feel like. So just like being educated on the benefits of breastfeeding or, not wanting to breastfeed, just kind of digging a little deeper to figure out, what the mom was thinking. Or, some people do it. My husband or my boyfriend said I need to breastfeed because it's cheaper. We don't have the money. There's just lots of different situations out there. So I just feel like reaching out to mom or even starting as early as the clinic at their appointments, reaching out to their care providers, their nurses downstairs. We used to see some people in the clinic going down or doing like prenatal type stuff, and Brooke does prenatal classes, so that would be a great option to ask about, just kind of, preparing for what your plan is during delivery.
Great answers, guys. Fed is best, right?
Yes.
Yep. One thing with breastfeeding that's so critical is having good support while you're here at the hospital, but then while you're home and at work, once you're back to work after baby's born. What are those things that a dad or a partner or a family member can do to be supportive of a breastfeeding mom?
I would say if you have a partner who's really wanting to be involved with feeding and care, because I feel like sometimes the partner feels like with a mom who's breastfeeding that they don't get to be as hands-on sometimes. And we've seen partners who get a little bit depressed because they don't feel like they're as essential as the mom who's strictly breastfeeding. We've had some partners who will get up with mom and baby during feeds, and they will do the diaper changes and make sure baby is taken care of while mom gets up and maybe goes to the bathroom or whatnot, gets herself situated, and then dad will hand off baby, and then he'll go refill her water jug, get her a snack, things like that, make sure she's set up while she's feeding, and then they will do things together. That way she feels fully supported and, has help and not just getting up by herself and doing all the hands-on stuff, which might actually get her back to bed sooner because all, the diaper changing, everything like that, because it can be kind of stressful. Anybody who's had a baby knows that, it can get a little bit stressful at times when you're sleep deprived and things like that. But, also, if you're doing any pumping or anything like that, having a dad who takes care of the pump parts or things like that, just to decrease some of the time that is, that hands-on time, just to kind of help out. Otherwise, anytime that mom is just needing, from what I've heard, sometimes moms can feel a little touched out with breastfeeding and just might need some time. So giving mom that time to maybe just take a shower and not have to think or deal with anything kid related, or if there's older kiddos around, maybe taking those kiddos away just so mom can have just that one-on-one baby time without 5 people pulling on her at one time. So I feel like there's a lot of things that can be done for support of breastfeeding that not necessarily just involves the feeding, but a lot of things around it that just can help mom feel a little bit more supported.
Yeah, I would agree with Brooke. Just the support from dads, from grandmas, from friends, from whoever. I always make sure that when they go home, they have a good support system to make sure they're not alone, that they can reach out to somebody. Hey, I need to take a nap. Can you come over and hold my baby? Or, there's those babies that just don't want to be put down, and you feel like you can't ever leave them with somebody. But, it's okay to say, yes, I need help, or I need 10 minutes to myself to shower or whatever, to get a meal, to do that thing. Also with dads helping, burping was another one I thought of, I just fed the baby. Why don't you go ahead and burp and feed and change, and I'll go ahead and try and get back down before the next feed. Or just lots of simple ways, reach out to your spouse or whoever, and just say, what can I do to help? So anything helps.
Yeah.
Every little thing helps.
Yeah.
A nursing mom. So.
And then I always try and tell them too that we're always an option. We've had people come back up to 6 months, the latch change, so they come back in. So knowing that they have support from us here at the hospital just doesn't end because they've had the baby and they've left the hospital. If they have any issues breastfeeding months out, or if they delivered at another hospital, we've had people come here for breastfeeding support. It doesn't matter whether they delivered here at our hospital or not. We're happy to help if we can. Just give us a call. But yeah, they can always come here whenever they need, because things change. I mean, breastfeeding might be going well for a couple months, and then the baby decides that they don't like the left boob anymore, so they're not going to nurse on it anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we might be able to help with that.
Over the last couple of years, there have been so many new, neat items to help breastfeeding moms. There's ice packs and hot packs, and then the new pumps, the wearable pumps that you can. But what are some of your favorite products? And so, Kat, as a breastfeeding mom right now, what are some of the things that you like?
Well, I've kind of quit the Haka, but the Haka I would recommend hardcore. And I didn't have it with my first two. I had it with my one I'm feeding right now.
And what is the Haka?
It's a silicone bottle that essentially suction cups to your other breast that you're not feeding on. So when you let down, it catches all that extra milk. So instead of going into a pad, it goes into this bottle, and then you have some milk to put in the fridge. Or I froze mine and started building up my freezer stash. And it was, total game changer. So then I felt like I could go for a walk, and if baby got hungry, my husband could feed her. So I just had a little stash built up. And they make, there's the Haka brand, right? But then they make them in all kinds. There's round ones, there's bottles, all kinds, but the same concept. I loved that, but I'm not using it a ton right now because my supply's kind of evened out. But yeah, huge. That's what I would recommend 100%.
I guess pumps. If any mom wants a pump, I would just explore your pumping options. We've seen a lot of women. I feel like every time we have a new mom deliver, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this pump, or what is this? And sometimes they're helping me.
I don't know how many pumps I've had to YouTube lately because I have no idea how to set them up.
Yeah, like the wearable pumps, the ones, you don't have to, they're portable, and just all kinds of pumps, but whatever's going to work best for you. People ask for our recommendations all the time. I'm still a Spectra fan, so but just what you can get, what you can afford, or anything, just so. But we'll help you. Set it up. Use it in the hospital if you want to bring it in, just to put it together. We can learn together. So.
Yeah, I would say the Haka is amazing. There is a item out there. I cannot remember the brand that makes it, but it's a little gel pad thingy. I buy it for all my friends who are having babies, and you can freeze it, you can put it in the microwave, things like that.
I've seen those.
And it's like a breast gel pad thing that you can use, and it's reusable. So it's great for people who want to cool things down, to heat things up. It's amazing. And then, pumps. There's so many different types. I've heard people say that the wearable ones might not be as strong as the big plug-in ones, but I think they're great for people who are on the go. So you can use them in the car, things like that. I always tell people when I do my prenatal classes to bring them to the hospital if you have them. You might not necessarily need it right away, but one, we can make sure you know how to use it, make sure the flanges fit, things like that. If you come to the hospital for an induction of labor, it's something we can use during your induction because pumping will actually produce your body's oxytocin to make you contract. So we can use it to make you kind of go into labor. So it's something to have while you're here. So, but yeah.
I had a lady the other day bring in a pump, and she controlled it with her phone. She just put it in her bra, and then she got her app on, and she was like, "Oh, okay, it's going." And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Technology.
I've had
That's
three
fancy.
different pumps. First one was, my oldest was a Medela. The second one was Spectra, which I still have, and I loved my Spectra. But now I have the LV Stride, and it goes in my bra, and I control it with my phone.
Yes.
It's amazing. I will say, I agree with Brooke. I don't think it's as strong as my Spectra, but I love it here at work, or I put it on when I'm chasing kids.
So breastfeeding is not always easy. And those first few weeks have their own challenges. So what do you say to a mom about those first few weeks?
I would say have good support. If something continues to be uncomfortable, seek help because we may be able to make it better.
I would say no, it gets better.
Yeah.
Yes, it does get better.
Every child of mine, it decreased by a week of that adjustment period. There was always some level of discomfort and pain for me,
right.
but then it always got better, and I think especially going into that baby 2, 3, and 4, knowing okay, there's this adjustment period, but it gets better.
And I would say if you decide that it's really not for you, it's okay. Don't feel like you're
100%.
giving up on yourself. You're not failing anybody. You're not failing your baby. But if we can help you make it better in any way, we would happily do that. But if you do decide to stop, that's okay.
Well, thank you, gals. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks.